Why is positioning so hard?
It is mostly so hard because
I feel like you smacked me across the face when you said the best offer doesn't always win. The best understood one does.
that's the thing that most people don't want to do. They want to jump straight into selling. But the thing is, at the beginning, all I want is to understand the symptoms that are on the other side. How can I connect? Always push the conversation to them because this is about them.
How do you get to that insight so that you're getting to where they feel like you're reading my thoughts?
Typically, the first question that triggers everything is,
A part of the book that really stood out to me that I'm curious to get some more context on is this idea of tension that you talk about in the book.
I was going to ask that next. Thank you.
Dude, that's why this podcast is the best in the world, because it's two humans with one mind.
My next question, you may not want to answer.
you know what? If you want a full picture answer, I'll give it to you.
And we are welcoming in Pedro Martins. He's the sales secret behind some of the biggest names we all follow and admire. People like Robin Sharma, Shetty, Chris Voss, and Cody Sanchez. And the way he puts it in his bio, I love it. He says, and some of the people that you haven't even heard of yet. While generating over 9 figures in revenues, he helps driven people and beloved brands like Coca-Cola and Microsoft and help them capture attention and convert that attention into impact and sales. Pedro's one of my favorite thinkers on the art and science of positioning, and he's recently written a book that John and I just tore right through called Stand Out or Fade Away. And on top of all that, I'm honored to call Pedro my friend. Pedro, welcome to The Growth Question.
Thank you for having me here. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be great. All right, I have my first question for you. We're talking about positioning. Your book is about positioning. Why is positioning so hard?
You know what? It is mostly so hard because we are ego-driven. And because we think about who we are more than who we're serving. Because it's interesting. If you think about it, whenever we want to serve someone, our excuses or our limitations, even if emotional, it's, am I enough? And that simple question puts the conversation in, what can I do to make me stand out in front of that person? But that person isn't thinking about skills, isn't thinking about what I call a LinkedIn job, isn't thinking about, oh, I need an executive coach. No, they're not thinking this way. People think in terms of problems. What problem do I have? Where is my problem manifesting in my life? And that's where people are thinking. So when people struggle to work on their positioning, it's mostly because they're thinking about themselves instead of thinking about who they want to serve. When we flip the script, everything becomes a lot clearer. That's why I keep saying, and I say this to everyone, whatever you are, forget about your skill, forget about your industry, focus on the problem you solve. You're a problem solver. And when you focus on the problem, everything becomes a lot simpler. Because for example, I'm someone who solves sales problems, particularly backhand sales problems. And I like high ticket sales. So I solve those problems. But to solve those problems, I have to go through a lot of things. Where are people coming from? What have they consumed before? And that builds the entire positioning. It's the problem I solve, not who I am. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think the way that you describe it in saying that it's a me first, a me centric type of perspective that we tend to have, I think it's fascinating because it's so natural. It's so easy for us. It's so effortless for us to be thinking in that sort of a mindset. And so when we're forced to put ourselves in the shoes of the people that we're serving, that's much more difficult than I think than it would seem, just because you're trying to get out of your own way in order to figure out what is important to them.
Yeah, it's true. Because whenever we center our conversations in ourselves, or we center the focus in ourselves, because at the end of the day, we want to sell ourselves, right?
Right.
But when we focus on, okay, I'm selling myself, who am I? The thing is, they don't care about who am I or who I am. They have no idea, and they don't care about that. They're living a problem and they're thinking about their problem. They're thinking about their sales team that is checking their phone because they have a quiet calendar. They're worried because they promised their wife to pay for the next holiday and they don't know if they can afford it. That's what they're thinking about. So unless And that's the power of positioning. Positioning is about building that immediate bridge that makes you relevant. Because if that relevancy doesn't show up immediately, they won't consume the rest of your message. And that's the problem, because if there is no consumption over your marketing and sales message, they'll never see your value. And if they never see your value, they'll never buy. So positioning is basically that initial conversation. And that initial conversation, if it's not relevant to them, it won't work. And you're not relevant to them unless you speak to the problem that is relevant to them.
I think early on we got to know each other through Twitter conversations back when it used to be called Twitter. And I think one of the most revealing definitions that you gave, and I don't know if I'm sure you probably still think of it in these terms or express it in these terms, was the definition of positioning basically in context of like a sports field. Could you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, if you think about positioning only works in relation to something. Like your positioning as a sport player, it's in relation to the other team players and the field where you are. Like your political position is in relation to whatever beliefs you have. Like there's position, you cannot define a positioning in relation to anything. Like you always have to compare it to something so that you understand what that positioning is all about. That's why it's so critical for us to understand what our audience is going through. Because if we can put ourselves in a way that they understand that we understand them, that's what immediately builds a bridge, because he gets me, so let me read more. It's pretty much like the example I used to give is, do you know the door peephole that every door has when someone knocks on the door and you take a peek to look who's on the other side? Positioning is that. It's that first glance that you look, is it safe to open the door? Shall I ask a question, or shall I just take my shoes off and leave so that they don't understand that I'm home? That's what positioning is. It's that initial, it's the first impression. And if that first impression feels safe and makes people feel like they get me, that's when they'll consume more. And when they consume, it's when they see your value. And what happens is that most people, they optimize whatever comes next, assuming that because they see the impressions, they saw my post. Yeah, probably they saw, but they haven't consumed it. They don't know your value. The fact that they follow you or that you added an impression on their stats, that doesn't mean that they actually understand your value.
I think this kind of takes us perfectly. So with your book, phenomenal, by the way. Like I scratched up and highlighted so many entries, and a lot of them I wanted to bring up in this conversation. And multiple times in that answer, you use the word understand. And in the book, like I think it's like page 3, I feel like you smacked me across the face when you said the best offer doesn't always win. The best understood one does. Because here's what most people miss. The reason you're not getting more traction isn't your value. It's not your effort. It's not your potential. It's not even your content strategy or funnel. You go on further to say, if it doesn't feel personal, it won't feel relevant. And if it doesn't feel relevant, nothing else has a chance to work. And that, I think, illustrates perfectly what you're saying, where it's like, for one, positioning is always in reference to something else. Right? Like even, and this to me, like you go way beyond the science and the psychology of positioning than this, but like the famous ad campaign, I think it was like Hertz or Avis, right? Way back in the day, is like, we work harder because we're number 2. They're even positioning themselves as like in reference to whatever was number 1. I don't know if it was Enterprise or whatever, but I think it's really cool that when I was reading the book, so much of what positioning to me kind of started to percolate was the ability to fully, intimately understand who the end user, the end client, the end customer is. But also, the second part of that is be able to articulate that in the realest, simplest, clearest communication, whether that's written, spoken, video, whatever, so that understanding is met. Like that is just a huge bridge. I feel like that is why people like you get paid as well as you do to do the work that you do. Because that's hard for like the average business owner or anything to fully grasp.
Yeah, true. And let me add to that, because what you picked up is beautiful, John, and this is one of the biggest differences, is that whenever I heard the conversation about niche, like, let's pick your niche, I don't like that conversation at all. And I'm using a kind word over here because whenever you think about problems, which is the core of positioning, is understanding the problem, the niche becomes irrelevant because you focus on the symptom, the way the problem shows up in people's lives. And the thing is, a sales problem show up in very different niches. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to solve the problem in a different way, or that because it's working for a different niche that I'll do things differently. No, but the way I capture the attention becomes completely different because the way they're living the problem is different. Still, it's the same problem. So whenever someone presents an offer saying like something like, I'm going to get you 20 new clients per month, like the we all go get those DMs, right? And my first question is, why 20? Like, what do you know from my business that you can promise me that? Like, you have no clue. You don't know that. But the thing is, if I write some copy saying, hey man, like, is your sales team with an empty calendar? Like, how many free spaces do you have? Like, how can I help your team fill up the gaps? That is a completely different conversation, because if I talk with a sales manager, he understands the pain, like he lives the pain, but it's the exact same offer, right? And I can grab that offer and present that offer to someone else just by matching the symptom that someone else has. And that's the thing. Like I was giving that example yesterday, is that most people, they speak with an audience as if the audience was all equal, right? They speak to 100% of the audience, expecting to capture the attention of 5 to 10%, hopefully closing them, right? I prefer to speak with 20% at a time, but be highly relevant. So when every time I speak with 20%, because those 20% live the problem in the same way, like they have the same symptom, I capture a lot more attention. So instead of closing 10% of 100, I close 20 to 30% of each 20% that I speak with. So I capture a lot more people just by being relevant, just by showing up as someone who understands wherever they are and the problem they have. And the solution might be exactly the same, but just from coming from a different starting point of a conversation, like a different view from the people, right? It makes me immediately more relevant, and they're open to consume my message and see the value and hopefully buy.
It's cool that you say that. There was an illustration in the book where you pretty much said that, where you're talking to like a founder and you have the positioning of an offer, and that equates to like $5,000 that they can pay, when you can have the same problem but articulated again in an intimate way to like an enterprise sales team manager, and it's a $50,000 offer,
Yep.
right? And again, just to kind of to zero in on this, because I love language. I mean, most of my business is kind of marketed and distributed through written content. But in the very beginning of this call, you talked about like how the end user, the client, perceives problems in their head, like the narrative that they're talking to. And from your book, I love this. No one wakes up in the middle of the night saying, oh, I need 10 more leads. I need better Facebook ads. I hope this email campaign works. That's how most people pitch. But it's not how most people feel. What do those same problems sound like in someone's head? What they're really going through is, how will I pay my team at the end of the month? Maybe I'll have to postpone the holiday I promised with my family. If things keep going like this, ... I'm screwed. And that, I think, is really where you start to dial in, like, how intimately do you know the conversation, the narrative in your client's head, to be able to put that into language, into an offer, into an entire like business positioned ecosystem, that when someone comes across it, they're like immediately, yeah, I know, I want to work with this person. I think it's just brilliant.
That's the core of my work, and that's what makes us valuable. Because, like, let me give you an example, and then once again, that's beautiful, John. We worked with a partner, and we worked we did a campaign last December, and they have a huge social media followers, but the email list was really, really not that great. So we did a campaign, and at the beginning, we told our partner, don't expect sales right now, because all we want is to collect information. So we engage, like we send emails just to engage our conversations to really understand where this audience were in relation to the offer. So I wrote an immediate, like a quick offer on a Google Doc so that we had enough to get conversations. So the true fans, obviously, they jumped right in, they bought. But the first month we closed roughly $32,000, something like that. But we had probably, I don't know, but 1,500 conversations roughly. Not everyone replied, but we had a lot of conversations. During that first month, I think I iterate the sales letter 4 or 5 times. Once I got more clarity, I was making some changes and we knew how to have the conversation. And what I can tell you is that the 6 months, like by June, that exact same offer that in December was worth 32,000. By June, we closed 2.3 million just from those conversations, just from the clarity. And that's the thing that most people don't want to do. They want to jump straight into selling. But the thing is, at the beginning, all I want is to understand the symptoms that are on the other side. How can I connect? Because high ticket sales is all about the answer to 2 questions. Will this work for me? And is this the right time? It's all you need to understand. If you can answer these 2, because people who can afford, people who pay the big money, the doers, the ones who want results, who understand the value of ROI, those, all they need is, will this work for me? And is this the right time? And my conversations are all to try to figure that out. But I cannot get that unless I understand what's happening in their lives. And once I engage with them, they immediately know, okay, this guy is not selling. He's actually trying to understand, because if this is not the right thing for them, I'm not selling. And I remember, like, in one situation with one partner, I had one NHL player, ex-NHL player, and he wanted to join a mastermind from one of our partners. It was $40K. And throughout the conversation, I really understood that he was going there for the wrong reasons. And I said, hey man, I'm not going to sell you this. I'm not going to let you in. And I explained, and I sent a very thoughtful email. And he replied very negatively, like really harsh. And like, I'm okay, because I'm at the end of the day, I'm protecting the brand of my partner. And a couple of days later, he sent me a new email saying how sorry he was, and telling me that he spoke with some of his friends and that my reply was absolutely spot on. And he was thankful. And he ended up buying a lower ticket one, which was still 15K. And he joined the mastermind a year later, just because, and this is the toughest one, is that, and this almost answers Craig's first question, like why he's positioning so hard, is because we're so self-centered. We're so worried about our offers and what can we do to make us look great? Let's add more modules. Let's add more bonuses. No, just let people get some motion. What people want, and one sentence that I really love is that the top of a mountain is the bottom of the next. So every solution creates new problems. So your goal is not to keep people stuck in one mountain, is to allow them to move forward as fast as possible. Like, I've had situations where I created the flow in a way where I had people buy a book on day 1, $7, something like that. And a week later, they were buying 4K product. And they did the entire Ascension model in 1 week, because I built the offers in a way that it really understands the journey. And the gap between the first one and the last one, it's really short. I'm just giving people the beliefs so that they understand that they're ready for the next step. Where most people are thinking, what can I present to make me feel great and to make me sound knowledgeable about this topic? The true buyers, they don't think that way. They want solutions. They want to get moving. They want motion. They want to have faith over their dreams.
If you're enjoying this conversation, the fun does not have to stop here. You can get regular insights from both John and I on how to build and grow your business without getting stuck in the frustration of going alone. So go to tgq.tools/signup so that you can get this type of coaching found right here on the Growth Question, delivered straight to your inbox. Man, there's so much gold that you just gave us right there. And so I want to unpack these couple of these a few at a time. So let's step back into these conversations. Now, My next question, you may not want to answer. And so if you don't want to, just say so and we'll move on to something else. But these conversations that you're having with people are so incredibly powerful and obviously so insightful based off of the interactions that you're having with them. What does it look like to have those types of conversations with people? What are you asking? What are you looking for? And how do you get to that insight so that you're getting to where they feel like you're reading my thoughts?
And like the first question that I typically, like I asked that question this morning, someone replied to one email that I wrote back in February. And my reply was, what happened now so that for you to answer? And typically the first question that triggers everything is, what's happening in your life so that you felt compelled to reply to this email? Like always push the conversation to them because this is about them. Like I know, like you probably know, you don't believe, but I know the names of the kids of a lot of billionaires and millionaires that I've never met, but they like, if you think about it, like we live in a world and in a society where one thing that I can promise you is that most people, they feel alone in their journey in any way. Like they feel that a lot of people don't really understand them. Like they don't really understand my dreams, my goals, my ambition. And we as leaders, our goal and what we do with our partners is try to make people feel safe around them. Especially and during COVID, I said this a lot. Now that people are completely lost, this is the time for true leaders to show up and let people know that the future can still be bright. And the conversation is about understanding, where are you now? Like what made you reply to this? What do you expect this offer or the service that this partner is offering can help you with? And once you figure out their ambition, once you figure out what they're going after, like I remember I wrote a sales letter. It was a 4 or 5 page sales letter, I think, and it made over 2 million. And this was for a mastermind for one of our partners. And it like the seat on that mastermind, it was a 3-day mastermind. The seat on that mastermind was 40K, something like that. And I remember that after every single conversation, I understood that people would go to their mastermind for one of two reasons, or the two reasons combined. One was they wanted to be close with the guru. All they wanted was to take a selfie with the guru because they would collect the benefits from their social media. And the second one was to be in the same room with other people like them who can afford 40K because they don't have that type of network. So the sales letter was basically that. Like I had the two elements in there. And throughout the conversation, all I wanted was to really understand, are you here for number one, number two, or both of them? Obviously, I didn't ask that way, but I asked about what do you expect to get from here? And
Sure,
if they would say, hey man, I really want to be close to this one. Like he's my dream. He's the one that I've been reading all his books. And okay, no, I know that you're number one. So the sales letter had the two elements in there in perfectly. And what I would say was that, okay, read the letter that the guru has for you and you'll see exactly what you expect. And like the same letter read by two people, they would read completely different things because they would go after the things that they value. Because in that conversation, we validated what they value. And also remember one thing is that most people, they know they want something. They don't know exactly what that something is. So throughout that conversation, that clarity is always a win for them. Even if they don't buy, they always leave that conversation with more clarity. And that clarity is what they value. It's what makes them come back for more because they know that we weren't selling. We were helping them get clarity because whenever they get clarity, typically they're the ones saying, hey man, like just send me the checkout page or send me the link to pay. I want to be there. Like I had someone emailing me this year. He went to this event 2 years ago and he emailed me directly saying, hey, Pedro, like, will we have this year? Because I want to be there. So someone reached out to pay 40K.
That's some pretty strong inbound right there.
Like we can close because the relationship is in place. They got there. They got the experience. Like if I allow anyone in there, I'm going to damage the experience. Like if we take care about everything and people have a great experience, they know the value and then there's no refunds because they know exactly what they're going after. It's remember the two questions or the two answers. Like, will this work for me? And is this the right time? If I validate both of them, it's done. And then they'll have a great experience. And because they had a great experience, they want to go back.
In the book, you have a whole section on like offers and when to take the positioning and how to seamlessly kind of translate that into the offer. And I don't have the exact quote here. Maybe it's subconsciously you actually wrote this in the book and I can't remember. But the note I wrote down was like the offer, a lot of a mistake people make. Let's say they've intimately defined the problem. They're using the language that the person speaks in. Now it's time for the offer. A crucial mistake that a lot of business owners, founders, coaches, service providers make is they move straight into a pitch. Whereas in the book, it seemed more, it's like, no, you've done all of the work up to here that they understand truly what this problem is. And even if we're speaking about $40,000 ticket,
Yep.
You're arguing more that it's more about permission rather than a pitch, right?
Yep.
The illustration you give is like you're doing like a campaign, you're defining the problem, you're agitating it, you're really speaking to what they need, and then they go to like a sales page and it's like, here's the 20 module experience we're going to go through, and it's like no. So I'd love to hear just you definitely kind of spoke to that, but I'd love to hear if this kind of assessment that I just laid out is on point and kind of how you would flesh that out a little bit.
It is. The thing is, whenever, and this is something that it's also in the book, is that whenever there's a touch point and people consume something from you, you're working their beliefs. Like, you're creating motion. Like, if they consume like a piece of content from you with a thread, for example, on X or whatever you guys are, like, they consume something. Whatever comes next needs to assume that they consume, so it shouldn't pick them up where they were before they consumed that. Like, it's as if there's a ladder, and for me, it's very strategic, everything. Like, if I had already that conversation with them, if they know exactly what the value is, if they know exactly what the guru wants to do with them, if they already accepted and agreed, all I need to do is show them something that confirms their belief that whatever comes next is exactly what they want. Because one thing that we need to remember is that a lot of times they need that document, the offer, the sales letter. It's not just for them. It's to show their peers, it's to show their wife or their husband for permission, because big investments sometimes require that. That's why we do most of our sales are either email or chat environment. I prefer email because, like, let's face it, where do we all speak with our friends? It's DMs, WhatsApp, Telegrams, or we speak in a chat environment. That's where, like, if someone calls me, I don't even know where my phone is right now. If someone calls me, most likely I'm not going to answer, because especially if I don't recognize the number. So if we don't do that in our lives, why would we do that with someone that we want to sell? We're already triggering their defense mechanisms. So if we keep the conversation in a place that they naturally associate with a safe place, where they don't need to answer right away, they can go and take a walk and think about it and then keep the conversation. Like, I remember one situation, I started a conversation with a lady, and 45 days later, we closed a 5K deal. And you might say, man, 45 days, the ROI, it's terrible. What if I tell you that throughout those 45 days, I didn't speak with her for more than 30 minutes? It becomes a completely different conversation.
Right.
Now the conversation is different because I didn't chat with her for more than 30 minutes. Probably it was 20 minutes overall throughout those 45 days, but she needed those 45 days so that the answer to question number 2 is this the right time, was the right time for her. So we have to understand that whenever there's a touch point, we're touching on people's beliefs, and whatever comes next should be according with whatever belief we worked before. So if I'm working, like, for example, I'm working on a belief that they can make money through writing online, right? So I know that if they are reading that, whatever they click next should be the next step to that one. Like, they already have that belief, because otherwise they wouldn't click, right? Now they want confirmation. They want something else. And probably it's a great opportunity to show a case study, or to show someone, or to give them like a quick prompt that will make them feel like, oh, I can do this. This is actually easy. And from there, you can present something that works as a solution where they would pay, because they have the belief that it can work for them. So every small step increments their beliefs. And whenever the belief is big enough for them, like what I typically do is that whenever the belief required to move to the next step is big enough, there's a product in there. If it's small enough, an article or an email is good enough. But if there's a big belief shift that we need to do for that person to not feel that they need to cross the Mississippi in one jump, let's build a platform in the middle so that they can have a smaller and safer step. And that's a product. That's typically the way that I think.
Ready to be on the growth question and get coaching for your business? We're always looking for businesses and people just like you to be breakdown guests for the show. Just go to tgq.tool/apply. Tell us a little bit about your business and your growth question. Awesome. Cannot wait to meet you. Now let's get back to the conversation.
So when you're describing this, a lot of it sounds very sequential. So, and you say that you base a lot of this within the context of email. So are these email sequences that you're building to where you can have at least a high understanding that they will have consumed point A before they move on to point B? I know open rates are what they are, but I'm thinking just in general, when you have marketing messages, you kind of don't know where people are dropping into what you're saying. So how do you engineer that experience?
No, like it's not about email sequences. I don't do email sequences. Like I understand, like if you want a full picture answer, I'll give it to you, which is
yes, please.
So the big picture is simple. Like for us, everything, like we think a lot about the ascension model for us, because most businesses, if you think about it, it's attention monetization, right? Like, and most of them, they fail at one. Like they're great monetizing, so they're copywriters, they know how to write sales pages and build products, but they don't have an audience. So there's a problem in there, and they don't like to buy ads. I wonder why. And then you have the other ones who have amazing audiences, but they're terrible at monetization. And sometimes they have only one or two products. For us, we combine both, but there's an extra layer, which is the most important one, which is the ascension model. Because if you're only playing attention monetization, you have to renew the attention consistently because you don't have enough to sell for people to ascend and buy more from you. So when you get the model to work and people, like you capture people's attention, you convert them into a low ticket offer. That low ticket offer moves people to what I call the lighthouse offer, which is an offer that aggregates everyone to really understand our philosophy, the methodology, because whenever people are all on the same page, it's really easy to move them to high ticket, because whoever joins the high ticket, they already have a full scope of who we are. And one thing that most people, they never really remember is that every single offer is a two-way qualification. People are qualifying you as, are you the right person to support me? But at the same time, I'm qualifying you because, like, if I don't like you, I don't want you in my high ticket offers. It's as simple as that. Like, we're all qualifying each other. And I don't mind about saying no to someone. That's why I show up with my energy. I know that not everyone likes my energy, and I don't care, because I'm not going to fake it to sound great to someone, because in the long run, it won't work. This is me. This is who I am. I always try to do that with my partners. That's why I don't do sales calls, because I know that whenever I'm doing a call, people will connect with my energy, not my partners. So I don't want to pollute whatever view they have over my partner. So I only do emails, because that way I can protect the voice of my partner. And I'm also protecting the buyer, because I'm not pressuring them into any sales tactics. So for us, everything that we build is, what can we build now that creates, like, I typically start thinking from the high ticket offer perspective, and then I build backwards. Like, I'm at the high ticket, K, 100K, whatever, and I'm thinking, what must people know and understand, and what beliefs must they have to get here? And then I build backwards. Okay, For them to be here, they need to get that. Okay, that's an offer before that. Like, what happens for them to be here? Something else. And then I build everything backwards. Like, for example, the book, The Standout or Fade Away, like my goal, like where I spend most of my time is in the monetization, the high ticket monetization, right? From this example that I'm talking about. But I know that a lot of people, they don't think they have a monetization problem. They think they have a leads problem. They have a volume problem. Oh, I need more leads. Oh, I need more volume, more followers, more this, more that. And through the book, I'm showing them probably you don't need that many. Because if we understand how to capture the right attention of the right people, you can actually move people to sales a lot faster because you're talking to valuable problems. If you pick the valuable problems, you can talk about high ticket offers tomorrow if you want. So I'm basically using the book as a conversation starter for people to have the belief that probably they are readier to monetize and to sell their offers or to present their offers sooner. And that's when the next level of the conversation will show up. So whoever reads the book and likes it and really understands the value of it, probably they'll come back to me. Like the last chapter, there's an invitation to my website. So everything, that's where the ascension is. It's not email sequences, it's belief sequence. And sometimes that belief sequence leads people somewhere else. But at the end of the day, everything that I do is to trigger a conversation with the right people at some point in time. And throughout that conversation, I'll understand their problems. So I'll have a lot more clarity about other offers that I can build. I'll understand if they're the right people to move forward. I'll understand if they're the right people to present to someone else because I cannot help them. Does that answer, John?
1,000%. I mean, it's funny, when I was reading the book, I was putting on the hat, and I have my own, questions at times. I feel like positioning is this organism it's never like solved, right? Because the conversation with your ICP, your dream clients, like they're always going to be changing, as what you said, like that the peak of a mountain is the start of a new mountain. When a problem is solved, a new problem comes up. And so it's always changing. But I was reading it and I'm like, in this book, Pedro is positioning himself as the perfect person to go to with this kind of stuff. I thought it was great. And I want to, maybe this is a good segue, but a part of the book that really stood out to me that I'm curious to get some more context on is this idea of tension that you talk about in the book.
I was going to ask that next. Thank you.
Dude, that's why this podcast is the best in the world, because it's two humans with one mind. And you talk about this idea of building tension. And I think a lot of that has to do with what you're kind of talking about, like your position, the offer is giving them permission for this new belief and kind of stacking and going through that ascension there. But I'd love for you to give some context on tension and really the idea of tension, translation, and tone as well.
Yeah, sure. And funny enough, it's where most people do it wrong. For one simple reason is that they believe that tension is about throwing salt at a wound. And that doesn't help. Like if you think about, like if you do ads and if you, like your content, if it puts salt on a wound, it won't work. Like even the algorithm wouldn't show up. Because what happens is that when people feel bad or even better than they were before, they skip, like they go to another tab. So it's really important that tension shouldn't be about throwing salt at a wound or lighting the, like there's a very good example that most people use is like people are living in a hell island, like they have a problem. And you want to move them to the heaven island where that problem doesn't exist. And what happens is that most people, they set the hell island on fire, which is absolutely wrong. Because if we see our problem bigger than it is, I don't see a reason why you can help me. Like, I don't see how you can support me. I don't feel safe around you, right? And tension is not about adding fire to the problem. It's about showing up as someone who speaks about the problem in the words that they're afraid to share with anyone else. It's those little thoughts that we have before going to bed that we don't even like sharing with our spouse, that we don't share with anyone because it would make us feel vulnerable in front of them. It makes us feel that we're not good enough. that's where, like, when we speak about the problem in their own words, that's where the tension comes from. But that tension builds resonance, right? So it's all about that. It's not about throwing salt at a wound. It's not about making them feel bad about their problem. Oh, you don't have enough sales. It's not that. But, and then you have to understand that most people, they're trying to solve the problem. Like, they don't understand the problem they have. They're solving in the wrong way. Like most people, they think they have a leads problem, they have a sales problem. It's their system that is broken, and they believe that by adding more, they'll solve. Like it's like people buying public presentation programs where in fact they should work on their self-esteem, and that public presentation problem will only add up to their discomfort. And that's the thing about evergreen markets, is that you had people solving the wrong problem 500 years ago, you have them solving the wrong problem today, and you'll have them solve the wrong problem 500 years from now. It's like investment courses. Man, first start to learn to have a good relationship with money, because otherwise the investment course won't help you. And those gaps, when you start having conversations with people and you really understand what's on the other side, that's where you understand how to build a bridge that makes people safe. And the tension is basically letting them know that you actually understand them. So if you speak their own words, if you speak in the words that they don't share with anyone, they'll feel nervous because they'll feel naked. But if whatever you do next makes them feel safe, they immediately feel ready to consume whatever you have next. And that's where it makes you a beautiful bridge, because it's not about sell, it's about, hey man, I understand you. I understand your problem. I understand where you're coming from. And most of all, I understand where you want to go. And let me guide you. And right now, let's get you a quick win, because this quick win will add up to your faith that you're not lost, that you're good enough. And from that initial win, from that initial belief in you and renewed faith, that's when they'll jump to a bigger one. And that's how we build everything, so that, because if there's no safety, people won't buy.
So one of the most fascinating parts of your discussion on tension kind of threw me for a loop at the end. I think it was at the end of your part of it, where you talk about one of the worst things you can do is release tension too soon. What does that look like?
Man, is the idea that you build a connection and you go straight to peach. Like if you release that idea that you understand them, and you lose that frame quickly, and it move the conversation to you instead of them,
So it's back to the ego again too fast.
Exactly. It triggers the defense mechanisms. Okay, I'm in a sales. It's as if, oh, let's get you to a discovery call. Man, we all know what that means. Call it a sales call, because don't call a strategy call. We all know the meaning of that. Because you give it a fancy name, people aren't stupid. We're all very sophisticated. We understand the process. So it's not because you gave it a fancy name that suddenly people they really care about me. Giving up on that tension is basically giving up, ego-driven. It's moving back to you and become a conversation about your agenda. Does that answer?
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
What about if you find out quickly that you satisfy the two golden questions, right? What is it again? Is now the right time, and will it help
for me?
Yeah. If you can identify those straight away, should you still be in the mindset of creating tension, and not artificial tension, of just stringing someone along or something like that? Or should you move into now the permission phase? How would you kind of treat that?
No, if I have enough information to know that they're ready, I'll move them fast. For example, whoever went to that program a year ago, they already know everything. It's about, do you want to go this year or not? I don't need to go through a conversation. I can send them straight to the sales page. And that's the thing. I know them. And it's funny.
Because you know what they want at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if I want, I can ask what's happening this year, but I don't even need to ask, because they already know what to expect from the program. So if they want to be there, it's because they want to be there. I don't, because they went already through it. And that's the thing. Whenever you build that relationship, for example, right now, the three of us, we're having this conversation. The next conversation we won't have, like, you don't have to convince one another to invite me, right? Because we already know who I am and I already know who you guys are. It's a completely different conversation. There's a relationship already. We're not foreigners to each other. And that's pretty much what a sales event should be, is that once the conversation is set up and the relationship exists, like next time they're the ones calling us and say, hey, like, is this open? Can I join? Because I missed last time. And we have a lot of conversations like that because we never actually sold them. We only tried to validate those two questions. And because they understand what the offer is, and all they want is that the right time to work for them. Because if the offer doesn't work for them, conversation's over, gone. But if it's a problem of timing, all I need is to send an email about that offer every couple of weeks or whatever, and I'm always giving people the permission to move in my direction and ask, hey man, I'm ready. And that happens a lot.
Well, to you, our dear viewer, listener, if you want to continue this conversation, I'm just asking you, please do yourself a favor, get a copy of Stand Out or Fade Away, give yourself the opportunity to go through and hear directly from Pedro all of these different lessons. And Pedro, if people want to get in contact with you direct, where would you send them?
Like the best place is probably ppmartins.com, which is my website, or find me at like Instagram or X at Pedro's Windfalls, and you should find me. But either way, like, just follow these two guys. They're amazing.